This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring defense attorney, Hidden Killers daily contributor, and host of the Defense Diaries podcast, Bob Motta.
The trial of Ashley Benefield is coming to a close. Heck, by the time you see this or listen to this, we may already have a verdict. But as we're recording this, it's Friday, and Direct is wrapping up on her. We're going to see Cross here shortly. Joining me to discuss, Bob Motta, defense attorney. What's been your reaction? I know you've been covering it on your channels, the Defense Diaries, which everyone should go and check out. Download the podcast, go to the Twitter, all that. But what's been your reaction so far to Ashley's testimony this morning?
I was of the mindset initially, and I have to look at it in conjunction with what I thought was a very weak case that the state put on. It's just my opinion on it.
Sure.
But in conjunction with that, I believed her. I know that there's two very divided sides on this. I just felt like she was being truthful. People are like, I don't see tears. She's faking, and it's like, I think that people, what I started to see in our chat, like on our YouTube channel, when we're streaming it, is that we have a very divided, like we did a poll and it was, I think 52% believed her and 48 thought she was lying, that this is all part of the scam. And I just felt that it was genuine.
Yeah.
But what I had a problem with from from Taylor, the attorney's perspective, is I think that he should have built up the pattern of abuse and coercive control by Doug that had taken place preceding this. I thought that was so important. He did it in the inverse. He did that after she kind of like, he got right into tell us what happened that night, and just in terms of context, I would have probably, and I'm sure he thought about it, because when you're preparing your direct of your witness, especially when it's the defendant and especially in a self-defense case, that was a highly prepped direct examination. And he thought about what the best approach going into it was. And he must have landed on, I think that we go into the event and then we'll leave the jury with all of the other things leading up to it that led to you shooting him. So maybe it'll be effective, because remember, in a self-defense case, you're almost always going to have the defendant testify. It's very difficult for me to figure out a way to where I'm able to prove that her actions or my client's actions were reasonable without putting them on the stand to give their mindset of what was going through their head at the time.
Yeah.
And in a case like this, where you have admitted behavior by Doug in his deposition, where he talks about, yes, I shot a gun into the ceiling of our home. Yes, I threw a gun through the kitchen wall and left a huge hole. Yes, I punched the dog in the face and knocked it out. Those things matter, because all of that is the context for that individual. It's not, what do you think is reasonable? Is it reasonable to think in her mind that her life would be in danger in that moment? Like that's the question that's being posed to the jury. It's not like a reasonable person standard in general.
No.
It's considering everything that she's gone through with this guy, in that moment of time, was it reasonable to believe that Doug might kill her or seriously injure her?
Yeah.
And my opinion is yes.
Yeah, so. That's basically the definition of the battered spouse syndrome. That is exactly what it is. It's not through someone else's prism looking in on the outside going, was he really a danger? Did you need to shoot him? You have to look at everything that she was considering in her mind to make that determination. And based on what we're hearing here, I would agree. I think she did feel that. There was a lot of interesting bombshells that I thought were dropped, and I'm kind of surprised they weren't dropped earlier in the trial to really, up the context of this, but they're certainly making their impact right now. One of those being his ex-wife and the text messages.
Man, that was it for me.
That she found. I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about validating those sort of things. The text messages themselves, what is being claimed here, is that essentially the ex-wife had sent Doug a text telling him how hurt she was, that on their honeymoon, he kicked her very hard in bed, basically because he couldn't get it up. His Viagra wasn't working. He was embarrassed about talking about it. And then also secretly recorded them having sex. Pretty kind of, that's not going to play well to any human being on that jury, especially the women on that jury. And I'm assuming, this is nothing to do with Ashley. This is just a piece of the past that's coming together to help contextualize. Doug was a different person behind closed doors.
Exactly. To me, that was an absolute bombshell. Like you said, I felt it was the biggest bombshell in the entire trial because it put everything into context. Because I was saying, I hope that the defense is able to get Renee's former best friend, whoever that may have been, because Renee is deceased and Renee is Doug's ex-wife who's passed. Yeah. But that. And I don't even know if they were divorced. I don't know if she just passed away or if they divorced.
I believe she just passed away.
She passed away, because we had heard Eva on the stand saying, that her father was always wonderful with Renee, and that there was a very positive relationship, and there was no signs of any of this kind of stuff. So this really kind of puts Eva's testimony in question in terms of what her father was really like. And to me, it was absolutely huge because, like I was saying, I would have loved to see the defense subpoena Renee's, whoever her best friend was, because her best friend's going to know. Yeah. Her best friend's going to know what was going on in that relationship. And if this was a pattern with Doug prior to, because people just don't turn into abusers overnight.
No.
They're typically either they were abused themselves or they were in an abusive household or they have something going on mentally. But it's typically not just like the flip of a switch and I'm abusive. Yeah, it's a pattern. It's something that exists in that person, and it ebbs and it flows, and they master it and they become more coercive, and so like all those things. So when that messaging came out at trial, man, I was already believing Ashley. And then when that came out, I completely believed her. Sure. Everything she was saying. It's like, and I've handled plenty of domestic relation cases in my 20 plus years. And I have seen over and over and over where women are begging law enforcement, begging the system to help them, and they just don't get the help. If they're, they'll call in, try to have an arrest made. They'll, even in this case where there was a mutual stay away order or a protective order in place, like when he was violating and she'd call the police and then they wouldn't do anything about it. It was like, I like, you never want to like have a situation end up like this, but like, I just believe her. I just believe that at this point in time, with everything that had gone on prior to that, this had just reached in her mind the point where Doug was going to snap. I really do.
Want more of the podcast without the ads?
Then hit subscribe to the True Crime Today Premium Plus channel on Apple Podcasts.
Try it now for 3 days, absolutely free.
You'll get access to all of our extended advance ad-free episodes instantly.
So you can binge without the break. True Crime Today Premium Plus.
Search and subscribe now on Apple Podcasts.